Well, today for the Shelby Scholars podcast, we are lucky to have Dr. Ed Bridges here. My name is Chloe Pickle.
And I'm Hudson Hanner.
And we've just been fascinated with all of your knowledge of the history of the state of Alabama, and we're excited to chat with you and ask you just a few questions. So first off, what impact has Senator Shelby made on Alabama's history?
I think if you look at Alabama, say from 1990 to the present, no person has had the kind of impact on Alabama that Senator Shelby has. I think he has done more to help remake our state than probably than any figure in the whole history of the state. And I think about the thing is every politician wants to bring good things back to his constituents. But Senator Shelby did that too, but Senator Shelby had this vision, this vision that to rebuild Alabama, to help make Alabama a better place, we had to have infrastructure in place to make things work. We had to have airports where businesses, people could fly in and out, where commerce could take place. We had to have ports, Port of Mobile. We had to have highways. We had to have things that worked, and we had to have education. So he in addition to all these infrastructure projects that he helps bring to the state, he creates research centers, education centers in science and technology at 5 Alabama universities that have this transformative impact on these universities. That bring major scientists and researchers in. It teaches a new generation of students. It builds an infrastructure of research and education. And I heard him say one time that it was his belief that infrastructure and education create opportunity. And he did this on such a scale, such a massive scale, that it really is having a transformative effect. And I think that it will be 50 or 60 years ago from now before we can measure the true impact of that, as we see these projects that he started take root and grow. The challenge for us today is, how do we nurture and encourage and develop and build on this legacy that he left for us?
Yeah, that's amazing. And I wanted to pivot. Could you just kind of tell us more about the archival process with Senator Shelby donating his documents?
So Senator Shelby's and Dr. Shelby asked the university to bring me in because I had known them for a long time, and they wanted somebody to help advise them and the family that they knew on this process. So I got to be part of the discussions, but this is the really interesting thing. If you look at Senator Shelby's career, it started out with hand notes and typewriters in their documents to create the documents. And if you think about that, these written records that we've had in some kind of physical form go back to hieroglyphics and cuneiform. Since 2000 BC or earlier, we've had written communications. Senator Shelby starts out with written information. By the end of his career, they're doing Facebook posts, internet communications, email, whole data systems. His career marks this historical transition from pre-digital to post-digital, and that's all covered in his collections. That's really an interesting and important part, I think, about the the collections. But also for Senator Shelby, he was on these major committees 4 of the most important committees in Congress at critical times, like the Senate Intelligence Committee. Now, some of the most critical records there are not in his files because the Intelligence Committee files, many of them are classified materials, and they have to stay in classified Washington in the records of Congress for the Senate. But you still see in his files things that relate to what he was doing in some of these key committees. But he was a shaping figure in Congress, in the Senate, for many, many years, and those records help document some of the activities that he did in so many different aspects. The banking crisis of 2008, the intelligence crisis, the post 9/11, post 9/11 in Senate Intelligence Committee investigations. He's part of all this, and so his records really relate to some of the important events in U.S. history.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So since you have spent your entire career studying and preserving Alabama's history, what is one historical figure, location, or event that you're passionate about sharing with others? It doesn't have to be anything specific, but just something you're passionate about.
Every bit of it. Every bit of it. Oh, well, let me tell you, you got time for one story? You've heard a bunch of them.
We've got time.
So James G. Birney, do you know who he was? James G. Birney was an early lawyer in Huntsville, was in the first state legislature in 1819, was elected in Huntsville. Very bright man, moved down here from Kentucky as Alabama opened up for settlement. Was a well-educated and progressive person, became mayor, helped build the first water system, first library. He was so respected that when the Board of Trustees of the University of Alabama was created and started to find a president and faculty, they commissioned him to go find the first president of the university and to recruit professors. They sent him up to Virginia. So people like Henry Tutwiler, Alva Wood, he brought them to create the University of Alabama. But Birney became convinced that slavery was immoral and started speaking out against slavery and saying that we've got to do something to end this system. And his neighbors in the state of Alabama rejected him and treated him with such hostility that he ended up having to leave the state. He fled to the north. He became an abolitionist leader and was actually then the presidential nominee in 1840 of the Liberty Party, nominated for president of the United States by the first political party that began to try to end slavery. And what a story, huh?
Wow.
What an Alabama story.
Wow.
And not really widely known.
Yeah, I wouldn't have known if it wasn't for you.
I wouldn't have known either.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
And I just have one more question. I know you worked to help Toomey be restored in a lot of these documents that are around, and I just wish you could give us some insight on how that process was.
Well, once the papers were moved, so I had been involved in the process of moving the papers from Washington down here, and Toomey was being restored, and the people in charge of the restoration realized they wanted some things in here to tell Senator Shelby's legacy. So since I had worked with them on the project and I'd worked with the university board on some other things, I said, well, would you help with this? And so I had the really high privilege of interviewing Senator Shelby, meeting with him a number of times, talking with him about his career and reflections, talking with some of his former staff members, and so I got a chance to work with the designer to put the text together, to think about how we set this up, to focusing on his personal story, his political career, his impact on the state, his impact on the nation, and that was another high privilege. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we thank you for doing that, and thank you for being here and answering our questions.
We're very appreciative of all the work that you've done so that we get to enjoy all of this.
It's not been work.
Well, I think that is all of the questions that we have for you today, but we once again just want to thank you for sharing some of your knowledge, and we really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.